Look at this fucking thing. Look at it. What does it do? How does it work? Like, is it here to hurt us? Is it here to help us? Does Damian McCarthy have an affiliate deal with the DSM? Why does he keep making these nightmare-inducing props? Like, between this and the dog-eared rabbit from Caveat, it seems that movies with freaky little guys are like his fucking bag. Not just that. Check the heart rate of this film. This movie scared me more than anything that's come out this year. That is a statement. It takes a lot to scare me, right? And I don't mean to disturb me. It does not take a lot to disturb me. But scare me? This scared me more than once. And I know it scared me because the first thing my girlfriend said to me the next day was, "Oh, you must have watched a good one last night. You kept saying, 'oh fuck, oh no,' over and over again." That's how I know it got me, right? It's also why Oddity is one of my favourite films, if not my favourite film this year. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that supernatural horror is like my favourite type of horror. Sinister, The Conjuring, The Autopsy of Jane Doe. They are simple stories, but they invoke the exact feeling I want when I watch horror movies. They creep me out, but they don't overstay their welcome. They don't bum me out for a few days after. The best way I can describe it, they're sort of like a roller coaster ride. Fun while you're on it. Talk to your friends about it after. And that is what Oddity does. Don't get me wrong. I don't mind the disturbing ones. They're just not my favourite type of horror. Oddity is. Damian McCarthy's Oddity delivers exactly what I want. It's creepy. It's fun. It's a brooding ghost story executed to perfection. It's been a really good few years in horror. We've had some really fantastic horror films, but a lot of them have sort of trended towards more art house and abstract sort of stories. Stuff like, we're getting more stuff like Longlegs or Saint Maud or Infinity Pool, which are all fantastic films, but sometimes you just want to go back to basics. You want spooky shit happening in a house movies. That is what Oddity is. And you know what it's like when you go to a fancy pizza place, right? And their pizza has feta, and it has prosciutto, and it has roasted pumpkin and walnuts and shit, and you eat it and you're like, that's a goddamn good pizza. That is a good pizza. And then you go to like an Italian mum and pop store and they serve you a 10 out of 10 margarita. The dough is perfect. They've got the optimal amount of cheese. The basil's fresh. The sauce is so good you want to drown in it. And you just think, how can a recipe so simple beat something so fancy with all the bells and whistles? It's the execution and it's the love that goes into that pizza that elevates it. That is Oddity. Like, Damian McCarthy is a horror fan. He is one of us. He knows what we want when we watch these movies. And I must have the same taste in him as movies because he fucking smashed this. He gets what we're after. And, I mean, if you're tired of having to have a PhD in trauma management to enjoy the plot of a horror film, this is the perfect palate cleanser, right? I think this will be a lot of people's film of the year because of that exact reason. And just to be clear, just because the premise is simple doesn't mean it's not a banger, right? It's a good premise. Oddities, it's an Irish horror film. It follows she's a blind medium, psychic, antenna for the supernatural named Darcy, and she uses her powers and a collection of trinkets to solve the brutal murder of her sister Danny. One of those trinkets is the fucking terrifying wooden man that I've alluded to and you've probably seen on the posters. Here he is again, in case you don't have enough of looking into his eyes. He's a creepy fuck, right? You probably got it from, if you've watched till this far of the review, you probably know, I think this film's a fucking banger. It's awesome. It's a good film. It's just a straight up good horror film. It's a masterclass in mystery, tension, and ethical jump scares. I don't mind jump scares when they're used correctly. Lots of movies just throw them in for the sake of, for shits and giggles. You know, if you get the shits after a jump scare, like if you're like, fuck, and you get mad after a jump scare, that is not a good jump scare. You don't get mad at any of the ones in Oddity. They are not used cheaply. There's a lot of thought put into shot framing. There's a lot of thought put into how much of a room to show. There is a lot of thought put into when to pull the relief valve on a scare. The opening scene takes place basically through a peephole, and I had a knot in my stomach the entire time. The entire time I had a knot in my stomach. It's so good. Fuck, it's good. And the acting is just top tier. It's top tier acting by everyone. My standout is Carolyn Brecken. She plays the twins, so Danny and Darcy, and she's stellar at both. But she was so good as Darcy. She's so good as Darcy. You can tell that she's on a mission. She's smart. She's capable. She's an expert at what she does. She doesn't make dumb decisions. And I just loved watching how Bracken used her body to portray the little idiosyncrasies of Darcy. Darcy's fucking weird. She's weird, given her line of work. But the way Carolyn plays her, she's just fucking brilliant. You can tell. Also, she's not goofy. Some people, when they play someone with a disability, they overact and it looks goofy and it's just wrong. Like, you just go, fuck, man, what are you doing? There's none of that. It is that you can tell she's got reduced spatial awareness, but she's capable and she's smart and she's on a mission, and it's fucking great to watch. The whole movie is pretty much set in one house, and it's a spooky house. As soon as you see it in the opening scene, you're like, oh, this house is going to scare the shit out of me. And it does. It's going to scare the fuck out of you. The set design in general of this movie is perfect. Darcy runs an oddity shop in Cork. It is top tier. If you like the shots of the cursed room in The Conjuring or the store from Gremlins where they get Gizmo, you're gonna have a field day with this oddity shop. The dog-eared rabbit even makes an appearance, which I just love. I love it when there's like a running theme through people's films, even if they don't have anything really to do with each other. I love it. Like the facility in Cabin in the Woods, Damian, if you are listening or watching, if you made a horror anthology series about every little thing in this fucking oddity store, take my money. I will be there day one. What a great setup. There's so much shit in there. I'm like, God, is his next film going to take place in here? I hope so. The only really negative I can see of this movie is I can see some people complaining that it's a fairly straightforward and simple story. As far as I'm concerned, that's a strength. But if you are a fan of the more weird and abstract stuff, I can see how you might find it a bit too vanilla. That being said, if you are a fan of spooky house horror, this is worth your time. It's the most worth your time thing that I've seen this year. It's got gore, it's got jump scares, it's got creepy imagery, it's got a 100-minute runtime. This isn't a 2.5-hour film. This isn't, it's 100 minutes and it clips. And you've got the ever-building tension of the ominous wooden man sitting menacingly at the dinner table in the background. The juice is so worth the squeeze with this movie, man. It was worth every dollar. Like, I rented this on VOD, and it's one of those films where I was like, happy to pay it. So happy to pay it. I recommend watching this if you love haunted house horror movies. The Conjuring, Sinister, Oculus. If you like any of those, this is your next one. This is a much watch. It's so fucking good if you like those films. If you love Caveat, I'm a Caveat fan. I was one of its biggest fans. You can go back and look at my top 10 list. It appears on a lot of them. And as a movie fan, there is almost no greater joy than when a director you love makes a film, like a follow-up film, and it's as good or better than the first. Like, that is the best feeling, and it's happened again here. I'm so fucking glad. I can't wait to see what McCarthy comes out with next. If you haven't been scared by a movie in ages, I see a lot of people being like, no movie scared me in ages. I am pretty confident there is at least one or two scenes that will get 95% of people, right? Like this, it got me, and I've watched hundreds and hundreds of horror films. I do not scare easy. This got me multiple times. I, the only people I don't recommend watching this movie is people who are really into abstract or art house horror. This may not be your bag. I think it's just a great fucking horror film. But I guess if you're into, like, it is not like Infinity Pool. It is not. It has elements of Hereditary, but it's not Hereditary. You know, like it's not Midsommar. So, which I get. Some people prefer Supreme to Margarita. I get it. That is really the only people who shouldn't watch this film. If that is the only thing you like in horror. Everyone else, go see this movie. It's fucking great. It's on VOD, Apple TV and Amazon, I believe. Get the fuck around it. It'll be coming to Shudder sometime this year. You will be able to watch this film. I highly, highly recommend Oddity. If you liked this and you want more like it, I highly recommend The Dark and the Wicked. It's directed by Brian Bertino. He's who made the original Strangers. For me, the 2008 Strangers is one of the scariest movies ever. I love it so much. It's one of my favorites. I even have a tattoo of it done by Shannon at Southtown Tattoo. The Dark and the Wicked is probably his scariest film since The Strangers. It's about a sibling couple who return to their Texas farmhouse to look after their dying dad and their distraught mum. Shit gets real fucking creepy real quick. It's got one of the most intense cooking scenes I've ever seen in a horror movie. It's a banger. Not many people have seen it. It's on Shudder. Definitely check it out. If you're looking for something just to scare the hell out of you, if you're like, I don't care if it's like Oddity or not, I just want to be scared, Gonjam Haunted Asylum. It's a found footage movie about a group of influencers who investigate an abandoned and real life, by the way, Gonjam exists, asylum. Chaos ensues. It's freaked me out probably more than just about any movie I've seen in the past 10 years, I think. And it's the right kind of scares. Like, you can watch it, you're fine after. It just fucks you up while it's on. Just an old-fashioned, really good Ghost Train horror. I just love Gonjam. It's kind of hard to get, but if you can get your hands on it, I highly, highly recommend. That's it. As always, thanks for watching. If you have seen Oddity, let me know. I know it's lots of people have seen it now. There's a bit of hype about it. Did it scare you like it scared me? Was I just in a particularly wussy state? Let me know. I appreciate you all, and I hope to see you next week for another review. Peace.